Good evening and welcome everybody to another episode of the Too Many Guys Soccer Show. I'm Stead and I'm joined, who seems to be who I'm joined always by in recent months is Professor Matt. This week we're going to be kind of wrapping up some things as far as the leagues are concerned, previewing the one big final game that we have in the European season, and discuss kind of what's going to happen upcoming this summer. This is going to be an interesting transfer window, so we're going to be chatting about that a bit too. But we got a lot to talk about. So before we begin, I'm just going to throw it over to Professor Matt. Professor Matt, how you doing?
I'm doing well, Stead. I'm doing well. Summer one has begun and just celebrated my birthday over the weekend, so that was nice.
Happy birthday. Happy birthday. Yeah, my birthday's in a few months and I'm not looking forward to
Is that the
it.
big 50 for you?
No, not yet, not
Okay.
yet. I still got a few more years to go before I hit 50, but I'm trying to fight off the aging as much as possible. So, especially I tell you this, as young as my kids are, I guess it's keeping me young, but at least we have that to look forward to. I'm telling you this though, when I hit 50 though, it's going to be grand. It's going to be grand. I don't really do much for my birthday normally, but this time I think I will. I think I will.
Once you hit a certain age, it's really the milestone ones, and
Right.
that's it. Like,
Right. I'm more thinking about what my wife's going to do because every 5 years since my 35th, because we got married when I was 31. So every 5 years, she throws a curveball at me. So, I mean, the last one was, of course, send me down to New Orleans to see our dearly departed friend G. So we'll see what happens at 50 because that one's going to be really hard to top. But let's go ahead and just jump right in. I think we have to go ahead and we've already talked about essentially Liverpool winning the title and Arsenal's struggles, but I think we can get a bit more into what's going on with the EPL season. Is we got to talk about the promotional playoffs.
yes,
That's
yes.
I don't want to say it was the best game I've seen all year because that game is typically a good game, but it was one of the most entertaining games I saw all year.
Mhm.
And I think we
Agreed.
should go ahead and just start with that. Let's just start with the promotional
Yeah, and
playoff final with Sunderland returning to the Premier League after 8 years. And I know all of us are sitting there going, they better have a season for us, Sunderland until I die. If they don't, they really, really shot themselves in the foot on this one. But let's go ahead and recap the game and talk about just what this means for the Premier League, because a lot of us who got into soccer over here on this side of the pond, your access to the Premier League when it began to this extent, Sunderland was a factor in the Premier League. They were a
oh
team
yeah,
that
they
was
were part.
perennially in and out. They have one of the best stadiums in England. Name of the stadiums is going to draw you to it anyway. Anything called Stadium of Light, it's got to be pretty cool.
Yeah.
So, and then of course we know about the documentary series, which I think is one of the top 10 sports documentary series I've ever seen, and just what it means to have them back. So, but let's start with Sheffield. What happened to Sheffield, Professor Matt? What happened? What did you see?
Uh, so the result of the promotion playoff, I it's not just the fact that Sunderland was part of the furniture when we were coming up.
Mm-hmm.
I'm tired of seeing Sheffield go up and go right back down.
Yeah.
And what happened in that match, particularly the second half, was sort of a microcosm of Sheffield's issues. It's like you have a squad that is probably slightly too good for the championship, but is not a Premier League squad. There are holes, mighty holes, and yeah, they got outplayed and they got outmanaged the second half of that match. Sunderland made the adjustments that needed to happen, and they came out like a totally different team.
Mm-hmm. And I think anybody saw. I mean, momentum is a real thing. Whether or not you
Yes.
agree with that or not, it's a real thing. You saw the shift occur at about 55 minutes.
Hmm.
You saw Sheffield start to really assert themselves. I'm sorry, you saw Sunderland really start to assert themselves, and you can see that Sheffield was really kicking themselves for missed opportunities they had in the first half.
Yeah, they because they could have buried that game. They really could have ended that match
Mm-hmm.
earlier. Uh, and it's momentum. Momentum is not a tangible thing, but it's you can see the signs of it because I don't know about you, at about the 75th, 80th minute, you saw the heads start to, they knew what was happening.
Yeah, absolutely. And even with Sunderland kind of like, or sorry, Sheffield missing their opportunities in the first half, that shouldn't have done what it did to Sheffield because that's football. That
Yes,
happens every week.
yes.
Every week. I mean, soccer is a game of missed opportunities. And it's very difficult for someone who hasn't really watched it extensively to not know that that's just a part of the game. If you go into the locker room up 1-0, I'm not saying you should be feeling good, but at least you're sitting at a point where we're going, okay, we just need to do this one more time. We just need one more goal, and we should be able to hold on to it from there. And Sheffield just couldn't do it. And it's been well documented about Sheffield's woes at these types of games. They're like what 0-8 or 0-9 now or something like that.
It's something
It's bad.
ridiculous.
It's
Yeah.
bad. And the only team that was equally as bad was Sunderland. And the only way they were able to kind of exercise the demons was coming back up from League One with that season three of Sunderland Till I Die, where they documented that, which they did a. I'll talk about that later. But excuse me. But so at least at the start of that game, you're going, okay, somebody is going to be like, we're doing it, or we got it. We're doing it. We're doing it again because even Sunderland, when that was coming back from League One and not necessarily going to the Premier League. So that, of course, was very meaningful to everybody that was there. But when you saw the way, excuse me, the way Sunderland were playing this total football style where they just weren't letting Sheffield get anything really set up as the game went on. The game went on, you saw Sheffield they seemed to be getting bottled up more and more and more and more, and they didn't have a response for that. So it was only a matter of time. And the fact that they had game even at 1-0, at 1-1, you had to think that even if this goes to extra time, if they don't figure out how to get through this blockade that Sunderland had set on them, they're going to lose this game because eventually you saw Sunderland was going to put another one in.
Well, and they looked as the match went on, Sunderland also looked the fitter team,
They
and dare
did.
I say slightly the more deeper team.
Yes.
And this going back to this has been a project several years in the making, coming up from League One. They're going to the Premier League, and they're unlike a lot of the other teams over the last couple of years that have gone in. They've kind of done it right. They've
Yes.
built a project
Mm-hmm.
rather than a yo-yo team where it's like, well, there's some Premier League proven players, but
Mm-hmm.
with just enough, we'll go back, but we won't necessarily be here to stay.
Yeah.
Uh, they looked not only the fitter team, the deeper team. And like I said, the adjustments were made once they realized, okay, well, we can effectively squeeze the pitch.
Mm-hmm.
We can win the midfield battle. That's when that match really was over.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And Sunderland being an average age of 23. I mean, very young
Yeah,
team.
yeah,
Very young team, but also a team that um but showed some real maturity because they lost their last 5 games
yeah.
in the
Well,
championship. Their
it should
last five. I mean,
it
it's not like Sunderland had won their last five, but I'm just saying they clearly were in a spiral. They were in a spiral, and they looked like they might even. Luckily, the other teams below them didn't really play that great either to push them down out of the playoff spots because they still were on fourth when they finished the season, which shows that overall they did have a good season. But to lose games 41 through 46, it's a long campaign. 46 games is a lot for a league campaign. Now, of course, they don't have too many games to play outside of the league, but still, it's a lot of games. And to kind of like put that aside and say, okay, at least we're in the final four. That's all we need to do. Let's just get in that four so we can get a shot. We have to win probably 2 out of 3 games and we're good. And they were able to do that and they were able to get through. And but that showed that yes, they are a young team, but young teams also, when you have a team like that, you don't know when they're gonna bump. You
mhm.
don't know when they're going to hit that level of a little bit of like, oh, I think I'm getting it a little bit more now. And you saw that with Sunderland as the championship playoff went on. So that was really exciting to see for people who support Sunderland. I'm an underground Sunderland supporter, but I'm telling you this, I was well before that season came out, well before Sunderland Till I Die came out. I was already like, I know I'm an Arsenal fan, but I like that team over there. So there is a lot of a lot of things to be excited about with them coming up. I think their youth is a good thing that they're going to
Yeah.
be coming up having, and also having dealt with this ass whipping they took at the end of the season to still get through. Hopefully they can grow on that. They'll get a windfall of money. They'll bring in players because I think now, as opposed to before, I would think that because that team has had so much exposure outside of the pitch will make it more likely that I see teams, players wanting to go there and play and think that this
Yeah,
team could probably stay up
and
for a while.
going back to what you said too, they're kind of a heritage team.
Mm-hmm.
So there will be they will bring in talent.
Yes.
And you know, I like I said before, if Sheffield had gone through, I felt it was going to be okay, well, they'll come in, they'll have their cup of coffee,
Yeah.
they'll bounce because
They'll
that's
get 21 points and that'll
yeah,
be
they'll
it.
get
Yeah.
21 points and that will
Mm-hmm.
be it. And
Yeah.
they'll fire their manager midseason and bring back that freaking guy. I can picture him. What's his name?
I have no idea, but I know exactly what you're talking about. I don't know his name though. Go ahead and look it up.
Blonde dude.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So yeah, they're gonna they'll hire him again. So like
Yeah.
it I really like I think there's a possibility that two of the three teams that come up this year stick around.
Yeah, there is.
There
Because
really is.
I mean, look, out of the three, Leeds, Burnley, and Sheffield, if you had to pick one to go down, who would you pick? That's the names Leeds, Burnley, and Sunderland. I don't know why I keep saying Sheffield.
I'd probably say Burnley.
I was actually thinking Leeds. I just
I well,
I was like, oh, I don't know. I
but
mean,
see, it's sort of a coin flip.
yeah,
Like all three of them, this doesn't feel like when Norwich would go up every other,
no, it doesn't.
right? Like Leeds went down, but they did the right thing. They sold off parts that they could sell,
Right.
invested in youth. Burnley, I think they came up one season too early. I think
Yeah.
it was their problem.
Hmm.
Uh, and yeah, like I said, Sunderland, this has been several years in the making.
Right. Right. And we have seen all three teams stay up before. I mean, we have seen that. And look, it's not out of the realm to think that you could see Forest going down. I'm saying you could actually because they're playing
We'll talk
conference this
about
year.
that. There's a weird scenario where that could
That
happen.
could happen. You could
And
see Wolves going down.
I
Wolves
was
has
about to
been
say,
struggling.
I pick Wolves to go down every goddamn year that ever happens, but they are losing their best player. So,
Mm-hmm.
you
Mm-hmm.
know,
It could happen. It could
it
happen.
happens.
Well, even though I'm gonna say a couple more things about Sunderland. It's just because I am gonna talk about that series because it wouldn't be me on this show if I didn't talk about it because I've talked about that series a lot. I mean, aside from the way that season three ended with the fan who unfortunately passed away, that I wasn't ready for that. That really affected me in a way that I didn't think it would. That was upsetting, but I thought the season as a whole, the show, they didn't do very well with that. I thought it was poorly edited. I thought it was very quick. I thought it was very haphazard, something they just sort of threw together to shut people up because people have been asking for it.
It was a cash grab, and it was a
Yeah.
cash grab that ended on a really strange
Yeah.
note because it was
Very
just like,
somber, very
yeah,
strange.
it
It's
was
like,
like,
what?
wow, yeah. You
And they even showed that couple. I mean, I shouldn't be call them a couple, I'd say, maybe because they were such good friends, but they showed them on the telecast. They, just a little like, hey, this is Sunderland, and they popped up. So I was like, hey, those are them. But yeah, that was very odd, and that they would choose to end it that way. But so and we don't know if they have any foot. We don't know if they're going to put something together or not. I mean, it would be great if they did, especially considering the spiral they had at the end of the season. I mean, talk about a a way you can show triumph through tragedy would be. I mean, this is set up for that. So we'll see if they actually have something they can do, where they can. I mean, there's cameras everywhere. I mean, come on, they
Mhm.
could easily they could easily put something together and do another cash grab. But I know that the reviews for that season were not very good, and I was one of the ones who was very critical of it. But outside of that, them coming back up with a young team, I agree. I think they could actually be a pest and they could make things difficult for, you know, Crystal Palace, for Wolves. And look, I hate to say it, but maybe for West Ham.
Yeah,
I personally
yeah,
I think Everton's brush with relegation, I feel like that's kind of over. They're getting that
yeah.
I think that new stadium opens next year,
New
if not the
stadium
yeah.
next
So
season. The finances have stabilized.
yes.
David Moyes isn't a great manager, but he's better than what they've had.
Yes, and he's what they need right now.
Exactly.
Yeah. So yes, I thought that was a very, very solid homecoming. And if he really wants to do it, if Wayne Rooney doesn't have a job, bring in Wayne Rooney as your assistant coach. That would
Mhm.
be, I just feel like those are things that they could do, just or Frank Lampard, something, go bring in a guy who can give you a little bit more cachet and make your team a little bit more sexy because that's just what's going to work right now for them. But outside of them, hey, I know we're going to talk a little more transfers though, but like Brentford's already making moves and spending money. Like I hadn't even I had heard the word Brentford. I knew they were a club somewhere in London,
Well, yeah,
and
because
that's
did
a
as an Arsenal fan, didn't you play them every year in
yeah,
season because they're
right when I don't pay
literally
attention.
down the street from you?
Right?
Yeah.
But I never paid attention. I didn't realize that when I was actually going to the stadium to first, I've been there like two or three times. When I was going to the stadium to just kind of see it for the first time, I didn't know that the cab driver drove right past the Brentford area, the Brentford stadium to get there. I didn't even know. So, it's considering that as a club, that was a team that I really just was like, I never really even heard of these guys. Whereas the other teams that had come up, like maybe like a QPR or something, I was relatively familiar with, and how they've managed to not just stay up, but be a team that is a pest and finishing in the top half of the Premier
Well,
League, making moves. They're like, nah, man, we're here.
and that goes back to where I keep going back to this. They got to the Premier League after years of investment and a slow build and a successful project. If you're going to do this, that everyone should look at Brentford
Mm-hmm.
because that's the model. And
Mm-hmm.
when I look at the Sunderland squad, it's like, okay, that's you may not have Thomas Frank, who I think is the most underrated manager in the league,
Mm-hmm.
but like you did it the right way. You did it the way that should equal sustained, at least staying up and staying up comfortably.
Right, right. But you have to give this Sunderland manager some. You got to give him some props. I mean, I am going to be somewhat before I anoint him as the next new young hotshot manager because of that spiral they had at the end of the season. You have to give him credit for stopping the bleeding
Hmm.
and stabilizing the ship and getting it moving to a point where they could actually really compete. But still, we'll see how he does at the next level. That I would not be surprised if he's not there throughout the whole season if Sunderland hit a bump because they're going to be like, we have to stay. We cannot go back down. I'm just a little. You can't lose 5 games in a row at the end of the season and basically, I mean, now they say you kind of backdoor your way in. They didn't even do that. They went crawling with with one leg and an arm missing.
Yeah.
So they got. I mean, yeah, there was a little bit of good fortune there. So I will say this manager, while I do applaud him for getting them to the point where they were, I think that he's got some soul searching to do from the way that season ended. Because what I don't want to see is Sunderland being in 16th with 8 games left to play, and they have to play Arsenal, City, Brighton and Hove, Brentford, and Crystal Palace. And then next thing you know, they're in 18th place. So we'll see what happens next year. But I'm the clubs in the Premier League next year are I it's going to be a bit more exciting because like I don't think anyone in their right mind thought Ipswich was going to stay up.
No.
No, no one did. No one did. That was clearly like a all right, whatever. And then Sunderland having one of the I'm sorry, Southampton having one of the worst seasons ever in the Premier League. I think they finished with 12 points. Yeah, they finished with 12 points. They managed to get a draw at the in the 36th game to keep them from tying Derby's 11 points. So that was, I mean, Sunderland needs to go. Southampton needs to go down and just stay there for a while.
Yeah,
Just stay there for a while. And the only person I feel bad for is Ramsdale, considering that he was a gunner for a long time and he got a lot of love from the team. I really appreciate the Arsenal fans applauding him when he was there. Every time he comes back, he gets applauded.
that's right, because
And
you guys ended the season with them.
yes, we did. And look, he didn't fit Arteta's plans, and I'm not saying that we should have kept him because I think Raya is a better goalie. But it's I feel for him. I'm hoping that some team says, "Hey, this guy's a Premier League goalkeeper. We need a goalkeeper. Let's go get
Yeah,
him."
there's a couple guys. My boy Ben Derek, like he's not an upper echelon center back, but
Hmm.
he's good enough to be playing for a Brentford or a West Ham.
Yeah, agreed.
Like,
Agreed. Agreed. Yeah.
no,
So
yeah,
yeah.
they need to commit to a plan.
Hmm.
I'll say this too, Leicester City.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Leicester's ownership needs to do some soul searching and really need to go, okay, look, what did we do the first time that was successful? We might need to go try that again. Um, they 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 have some work to do. Leicester's I don't have anything to say about I just don't. I was disappointed. I swore up and down that people who were calling them they were going to go down at the beginning. I was like, y'all are crazy. No, they're not.
You know why? Because, and I was not guilty of this, but I know why. Th this podcast is kind of secretly, the Jamie Vardy cult army. Like I love Jamie Vardy.
I do too. I do
I
too.
love Jamie Vardy, but when they came up, I looked them up and down, and I was
Yeah.
like, other than Vardy, who's like, you know, like I think he's older than my wife, actually. Uh,
Vardy's 38.
yeah, so he's got a year on my wife.
Yeah, I think he's
Yeah.
38. Yeah.
So other than Jamie Vardy, it's like there's no one really here. You lost your manager, and like the only guys I recognize from the last time are guys like Wout Fares, and it's
Hmm.
like that doesn't fill me with confidence. Like,
No, it doesn't. And they have David Luiz's evil twin brother over
well,
there
that's
playing
him.
defense.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I know what you mean. There's something about Leicester that's just things aren't going well over there, and they have to really get back to it and go back to the model that seems to work because you can't. It's not just throwing money at teams. You really have to make sure that you have done your due diligence to do your recruiting. Look, you're not going to go find N'Golo Kante and Riyad Mahrez again, but
Well,
you can get
but
close.
so I was
You
just
you
about to say
you dug them out of
what
a scrap heap.
they they were successful ultimately because they were doing what like Brighton and Bournemouth are doing now first,
Mm-hmm.
finding really young talent from outside of the UK,
Right,
bringing them in, bludging them in, and then selling them on for a profit, rinse, repeat.
right.
They got away from that model.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Uh, and that ultimately is what did them in.
yeah. I feel like teams that let that kind of get a windfall of success because let's not forget they won 2 trophies, so 2 major trophies, and so when you go down and the instinct is to come back up as quickly as possible with the same squad, let's not forget they're 4 years older now, and
Mhm.
there's things to think about there, and I know you want to keep the players that put the butts in seats, but fans like winning as well. They like competing as well, and I don't know. I can't say that I agree with what happened with Casper Schmeichel either. So I don't
Yeah, well,
I just didn't agree with that. I didn't agree with that. So but let's go ahead and kind of wrap up our EPL talk. I just want to highlight the fact that I think there are 9 teams in the EPL that are going to Europe next year, which
yeah,
is which is
yeah, which is crazy.
crazy. And look, I'll start at the bottom. Let's talk about Nottingham Forest. Nottingham Forest, that owner who had the nerve to reprimand Uncle Nuno on the sideline in front of all the camp. First of all, that guy doesn't deserve a dime for them out for the amount of success this club has had. Nuno has done a phenomenal job. He should be coach of the year. He should be coach of the year. And yes, you were smelling Champions League and you thought something was going to happen, but let's not forget the days of teams like Nottingham Forest winning in Europe are long gone.
And look, they were punching above their heads
Way above their head.
earlier in the season.
Look, that's
Let's
little
not
Mac from yeah,
let's
they were
not forget Chris Wood is their number nine. I'm
exactly.
gonna repeat that.
Exactly.
Chris Wood is your number
Is
nine.
your number 9. Yeah,
The
no, they were
fact
punching
that
above their weight
the fact
completely.
that you're in Europe, you're going to get money. That's a win-win. Like,
And this is a tournament you can win.
yeah, yeah,
You can win this
yeah.
tournament. So, yes, you can lick your wounds from being like, oh, we were almost there. But then you got to go, well, hold on.
What were the expectations? Because a lot of
Right.
us had them going down this
Had them
year.
going down.
Yeah.
You finished 7th. You're in the conference league qualification. You're going to qualify.
Hmm.
You're going to qualify. You can roll your B team out there and they'll win 3-0. You're going to qualify. And then you have to sit there and think about it and going, okay, well, hold on a second. Look at the teams that have won this tournament outside of the team that won this year. I'll take a dump on them later. You had Roma, West Ham, and I think Frankfurt. Was it Frankfurt the team? The German team?
Frankfurt, yeah.
Frankfurt, yeah. Okay. Hmm. Hmm.
And you
So
have to
go ahead.
figure too, because the rumors are that they're going to move Morgan Gibbs White.
Mm-hmm.
You get a good, buyback from him. You can then invest that. And some of the issues, because they ran out of steam as the year went on
Mm-hmm.
because of not just a lack of quality. Like, I don't want to seem
Yeah.
like hating on an geriatric New Zealand man. But it was lack of depth.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
their starting 11 was good.
Yeah. But
Once
you're
you
just gonna
got
start to
beyond,
get tired.
yeah,
You got
once you
beat
got
up.
yeah,
Yeah.
once you got beyond that, things were a little bit of a problem. So,
Yeah.
if you sell Gibbs White, bring in 4 or 5 guys.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, okay.
Mm-hmm. And you can bring in guys for a bargain
Yep.
that can give you quality minutes, give your top 11 a break, especially in, maybe early League Cup games, things like that where you feel like you should win. Or if maybe you're like, you know what? We're not going to prioritize this particular competition because you're now in 4 competitions to start of the year.
Mhm.
Switch your priorities around. Bring in a bunch of new guys. Yeah, you actually can compete. But I think they got to be. If I was a Nottingham Forest fan, I'd be sitting there going, "We can do this. We can get another trophy. We can get another European trophy," and I would be quite excited about that. So I really think that Nottingham Forest should feel very good about what's possible next season. What's possible next season? We have Villa going to Europa League, which I also think Villa can win
That's
Europa
doable.
League.
That's
That's
doable.
doable. That's doable. And then you have 6 teams qualifying for Champions League.
Well, no,
So
no. Palace is Europa League.
no, but you have the 5 teams that qualify for Champions League.
Hmm.
Palace is Europa League as well, but don't forget
Yeah.
Spurs get to go to the Champions League next year
Oh,
for
yeah.
Europa
Wow.
League.
Oh,
So there's
okay.
6 of them. Yeah,
I was
ours. Yeah,
blanking on that.
yeah.
Yeah.
EPL have 6. And we'll
Yeah.
talk about Europe later on in the show. But a couple of other things. Anything else you want to add about EPL season? No, no. Except for anything you want to say about Liverpool because we're not going to talk about them. Maybe till transfer window.
Yeah, well, we'll talk about the potential transfer window. I am over the weekend probably going to record a short talking to sort of wrapping up the season and talking transfers. So no, I do want to talk about a team that if Leicester City, Ipswich, and Southampton didn't exist, would be going down. What the hell is happening at United? And I feel like a Liverpool and an Arsenal fan are, here, and we shouldn't be talking about this, but
Yeah.
I I don't know. This is weird for me because I'm too young to really remember them being bad. I mean,
Me
they've
too.
been they
Me
they've been
too.
they've
Me
been
too. I'm
mil-
just too young to remember them being
they've
bad.
been militantly mediocre
hmm
as of late, but like I the
hmm
manager was brought in, and look, I he was on my short list to replace Jurgen Klopp. I still think he could be a pretty good manager, but
hmm
ultimately we passed on him because one of the big reasons was tactical inflexibility.
hmm
Well, yeah, I mean, he does that. Like,
hmm
and am I crazy in thinking they need at least 7 or 8 new bodies, like in the starting 11? Because you love this system so much. There's like 3 guys who maybe can play it.
Yeah, I think
Like,
if he's not gonna make any adjustments, that's the only choice he has. He has to go get his guys. If he can't go get his guys, then what's the point?
yeah, I
Because
just
look, they're not Manchester City. They're not. They're not a team like Pep, where Pep can come in and just meticulously put the guys in that he wants over time, who can run his system for the money he wants to spend. If, but they're not at that point.
no, and
They need to overhaul the squad if they're going to stick with this manager. They have to overhaul the squad.
And I mean, we'll talk a little bit about Europe later. And transfers for that matter. The lack of European football, period. While I think that's a good thing because,
Mm-hmm.
man, can you imagine if they had gotten to the Champions League? That would
Yeah,
have been that would have been bad. But like
that would have been.
that would have been bad. But like at the same time, it's like every big club needs to have a plan B this time of the
Mm-hmm.
year when you're doing
Mm-hmm.
transfers.
Mm-hmm.
If you're United, I hope you have a plan C and a plan D because people are I know it's still Man United, but like people are not necessarily going to be lining up and signing up for this project,
No.
especially because like I think we were talking off air. I still believe in this manager. I think he can be a good manager. But I also said the same thing about a lot of United managers. It's like I think they can be good if they weren't in this mess.
Yeah.
Like, if they weren't here. It's bad when the manager starts already saying weird stuff during press conferences. That
Yeah.
that to me is usually a sign of things aren't great.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's one of the fascinating stories moving into next season because it's like I I have no idea what to expect from them in terms of the summer or
Mm-hmm.
realistic expectations because part of me is like, well, they'll bring in enough guys through the door. They're not a top 6 team at the moment, but they could be
No.
10.
Yeah.
Or at the same time, I can see this manager gone by Halloween and
Yeah. Can too.
this being a dumpster fire.
Yeah. And he's been pretty demonstrative with his players as far as the
Yeah,
ones he wants to keep and when he wants to go. I mean, he's been pretty like,
well,
bro,
that's the other thing. It's
that's
like,
not
look,
good.
getting rid of Alejandro Garnacho is probably healthy. Uh,
Right.
telling him and your entire team in the dressing room that you want to get rid of him, maybe I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know how to read that.
Yeah.
Say, okay, this is the manager putting his stamp on the squad. This also can scream, this isn't particularly the most professional thing. And
Yes.
I don't know what kind of message that sends to the other guys
hmm
because they're like, well, if he does this, why should I care?
Right. Exactly.
So there's a that's a that that tactic was a double-edged sword. That's a
Yes.
conversation you have with the guy in your office behind closed doors.
Yes. Yes. And that's the part that makes you really wonder are they capable of it? Of because look, the fans want an immediate turnaround, which is expected. They're Manchester United fans. They think they should win the Premier League every year, even when their team isn't good. They still expect to do that. And the fact that there's this level of uncertainty about the direction of the club moving forward, they already hate the ownership, and now they don't like this manager. They don't like him. I mean, and look, our Manchester United friends are awfully quiet right now.
Yeah,
They're very quiet because
yeah,
and not in a way that's like, we don't want to talk about a team. They're just like throwing our hands up.
yeah. What do you what
What we
I
got
don't
nothing.
know. Yeah,
We got nothing. And that's and as if you were a Man U supporter, that would be scary. And take away my well documented disdain for Manchester United, it's still something that makes you have to wonder like what is this? Is it really the dumpster fire that all the fans have been saying it is? And now that the people who are not Manchester United's followers are seeing it, it has you going, wow, maybe this has been brewing in that clubhouse for years. Maybe there's a real problem. And even though you can say, well, Sir Alex Ferguson isn't walking through that door again, well, that's such I feel like that's such a weak argument to
that's
make. It's
that
very weak. It's like, come on, man.
it
Stop hanging.
and it's dangerous
It
because
is.
what I've seen from a lot of my Man United friends over the last couple of years is the crap that I saw in my own fan base for eons.
Yeah.
It is very dangerous to become History FC.
Yes, exactly. And that's the
Oh,
one thing I'm happy about with Arsenal was you didn't get a whole lot of Arsene Wenger comeback things. You didn't get a lot of it. And I think it's
well,
almost like we're lucky that Arsenal wasn't that good at the end of his tenure
I
because
was just
at least
about
it's
to.
like, well, we knew the train had kind of ended with him about 4 years ago. Luckily,
I
he got a couple of FA Cups to end his tenure, but we were all like, bro, we know it's going to hurt. We know we're probably going to take a dip, but we got to move on. We got to move on. This isn't working anymore. And it's not, is it Wenger's fault? Well, those of us who saw the fact that they didn't spend any money anymore lets us know, like, not really, but it's time to move on. It's time to move on. And Manchester United, I feel like the team has been trying to move on, but they haven't been able to get any sort of stability in the management and now it sounds like in the front office as well. So I don't know what they're going to do. Um, but I listen, I'm gonna say this too. They're not the only team that has to be very careful about what happens moving forward. Arsenal has to be very careful moving forward.
I I'm glad you mentioned that because I was
They
like,
do.
does he want to
They
have this
do.
conversation?
I will
Or
because
like,
I'm gonna say this. Thierry Henry, you were exactly right. He's exactly right. To not question what the manager's doing at this particular point in his tenure would be idiotic. And I have been a strong Arteta supporter. But you heard me. I mean, in the past 6 months, I've started to go like, I don't know.
well, and as an outsider looking in, I've always given Arteta a lot of props, particularly about 2 years ago when you saw this project coming together.
Mm-hmm.
If I was an Arsenal fan, this is how I would approach next season. I'm going into the summer. I'm not Arteta out because that's you just want you want him gone. You would take almost any alternative. But I would be leaving myself open to if it's Christmas and we're out of the League Cup, we're not doing all that well in the UCL, and it looks like it's going to be a second place finish again. I would say I would reserve the right to be Arteta out
Yeah,
because it he's taken them this far in the project. I wonder if the project has outgrown the
exactly.
engineer at this point.
Exactly. And me and my Arsenal buddies were we came to kind of this buddy of mine put up a poll and just said, what do you think? Arteta out, Arteta in, or let's wait and see. Overwhelming, the wait and see was give him one more year. Overwhelming was give him one more year.
Yeah.
With an emphasis on the one.
Mm-hmm.
Because I will say this, even though several teams won trophies in England this year, and Arsenal wasn't one of them, and I complained about that in the last show. Take all that away. Take all that away. I said at the beginning of the year, if they don't win something, this season is a failure. They didn't win anything. They didn't final in anything. We just talked about the dumpster fire of Manchester United. They finaled. Even though Europa League is watered down because of the new format. It is watered down. They didn't final. They didn't. And they crashed out of the domestic cups very early. Very early. But you basically gave away the league to Liverpool long before Liverpool even won it.
In February, I was.
Yeah, they were out.
Yeah.
That was it.
And
that was it. All Liverpool had to do was essentially hold serve, which isn't that difficult to do when you're top league, unless you're Arsenal, because we never seem to hold serve when we're top of the league. But that was it. So you're dealing for scraps. And all we had, those Real Madrid wins were fun, but that fizzled very, very, very quickly. And because it was a quarterfinal. I mean, think about it. That's the quarterfinal. That wasn't a semi. That was a quarterfinal. You didn't final. And you got blatantly outplayed by PSG. By PSG, you got outplayed. You got outmanaged. You got outcoached.
Yeah,
you got out-tacticked. You got out-substituted. Top to bottom. And you have to sit there and wonder and go, okay, it seems like whenever Arsenal has the chance to take a big step in any of these competitions, they haven't been able to do it. Let's not forget last year when Arsenal should have won the league, but Arsenal did horrible in December. Horrible. Lost 3 straight games. Pretty sure it was 3. Might have been 2, but I think it was 3.
Yeah, because it was the match before
it was
Christmas.
Fulham.
It was Boxing Day.
Yeah, it was Fulham.
Yep.
It was
West Villa.
Ham. Villa. It was Villa,
Yeah.
Fulham, and I think it was West Ham.
West Ham, yeah.
So, it was like after the first loss, you're like, okay, everybody loses every now and then. Second loss, everyone starts to go, okay, hold on a second. Third loss, we're out. That's it.
And I'll say this, going back to managers saying weird things, not being good signs. Your boy's been saying some weird things recently. Like, is he cracking slightly? Like it's going to be the first couple months of next season, I think, is going to tell us a lot.
Yep.
About the direction of where they're going.
I'm telling you, if Arsenal is sitting in 14th after the first 6 games, they're going to call for his head. And I'm not going to call for his head, but I'm also not going to be sitting here saying, you guys know what you're talking about. I'll just be sitting here pretty quiet, just going like, who you got? Who you got? Because a big reason why a couple of years ago why I was so against him moving on, because I kept saying who's going to take the job.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't think anybody really wants that job. Now, I think there's great managers who would want that job now.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see what they do in the offseason. We'll see this is the worst thing about it. This is the main thing, and I meant to lead with this, but I talked about this last week, how Arsenal's leading scorer, our last show, how Arsenal's leading scorer was Kai Havertz.
Yeah. Who has
not played since February.
Yeah.
Arsenal's leading scorer is still Kai Havertz with 9. The last time Arsenal's leading scorer did not have double digits in goals was before World War II. Since Aubameyang left, we have been calling for a striker. We need a striker. We need a striker. You spent money on Gabriel Jesus. I'm sorry. Yeah, Gabriel Jesus, and he can't stay healthy. He can't. And even when he was playing, you could see he's not right. He can barely he didn't have his legs. He didn't have it. He comes in, he scores a hat trick. Next game, out again. So I'm sorry, you can't. If you have one guy who's your goal scorer and he gets hurt, and then you think you can just do, you can't do that. You can't do that. And they didn't reinforce the position. And now what's even worse is the rumors of who's Arsenal's going to sign is another midfielder.
Yeah, I
What are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? Look, Odegaard might not be here next year. He might get sold. He might.
well,
Grumblings
okay,
of Odegaard getting sold.
so
Partey's out. Jorginho's out. Okay.
the
But still, the glaring issue at Arsenal is goal scoring. The glaring issue at Arsenal is goal scoring. Arsenal, and you can't look at the stats and think that that's good enough. But look, outside of the top three, there is a huge difference in talent when it came to the Premier League. You had Arsenal, you had Liverpool. Those were your top two teams all year long. Man City took a huge bump when the all of the complaints about the charges and everything like that was going to happen with them, and then they dipped and everything like that, and they weren't sure what was going on. Man City finished third, 3 points behind Arsenal, and scored 3 more goals than Arsenal did this year.
Mhm.
Yeah, this is a problem. Huge problem. And Arsenal has to stop thinking that, listen, I'm sorry, I've been ranting and ranting and ranting. I probably should put this on my own little short, but
It's therapy.
yeah, but we were so sick of Wenger saying top four is like a trophy. No, it's not. You don't get a parade for finishing top four, especially when you squeak in at the end of the season. So now we are perennially finishing top four. I think this is the third year Arsenal have finished second. Second,
Yeah.
second, second. Okay, great. You need to win a trophy. You need to win a trophy. That FA Cup you won, the COVID FA Cup, nobody cares about that trophy.
And this is the crazy thing, and this is why Arteta has to be in the spotlight here.
Mm-hmm.
The last guy from that team that won that trophy is walking out the door in
Yes, he
Tierney.
is.
So this is Arteta's team now.
Mm-hmm. 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 This is
Okay.
your last shot, buddy.
Yep.
This is
Yep.
your last shot.
This
We're
is
tired of waiting. We're
you
tired of waiting.
remade this team in your own image.
Yes.
So yeah.
Yes. We don't talk about the Invincibles anymore. We're done. We're done. Let's go. And also, let's not forget, I don't think City is going to be that great next year. I think they're
I
top four,
agree.
but I don't think they're going to be that great. And I
I
think people know how to play Erling Haaland now. There's enough on Erling Haaland that they know how to deal with him.
mhm.
Number two, Kevin De Bruyne is gone. City's kind of old, other than the new guys. You know, they brought in some younger guys, but their nucleus is a little old outside of Erling Haaland. Chelsea's better. Chelsea's going to be a lot better, but City's still going to be City. Chelsea's a lot better. Newcastle is a lot better. Who won the League Cup?
Yep.
Villa, outside of Emi Martinez being an idiot, could have easily qualified for Champions League. So you're sitting now going, all right, that compression's happening. And guess who already signed a player? Spurs did. Spurs just spent 21 million to sign a defender. So look, I don't know what's going on over there, but the fact that Ange said that I went in my second season and he did, all I'm saying is these are teams you're going to be playing against. So you have to do, yeah, the next
And
from
they
June until
spent,
October are very important.
and Spurs, to their credit, spent money on their biggest position of
Their
need.
their need.
Whereas when I saw that you guys
Mhm.
effectively, locked up Zubamendi, I was like, oh, that's a shame. I wanted him last summer. But then I'm
Yeah.
thinking to myself, how many hybrid defensive slash box to box midfielders do Arsenal need when not only do you need a striker, you need, I'd argue, at least one additional winger because you
Yeah,
are
we
going
do
to
need a winger
run. You're going to run, a, a borderline generational, perhaps generational talent into the
into the
ground.
ground.
Stop it.
I won't say they're going to do that. They've already done it. They ran him into the ground. And I'm glad at least Arteta had the foresight to say, you're not going to play for 3 months. Don't even come to the facility. Go. But that kid is 23. Go. You have a world class talent. And you don't think that Real Madrid or Barcelona or Bayern Munich is sitting there going, he'll get sick of them pretty soon and we'll take him. Because you're not seeing English players aren't wedded to England anymore like they
No,
used to be.
that that
We're
that
getting back to the days of Beck and McManaman who were like, nah, man, I'm out. I'll go play somewhere
uh,
else. I'm good. I'm good. So, um, but that's all I want to say. I think the Premier League, though, is going to be, I think next season is going to be awesome. It's going to be awesome. And
we wanted parity
we
for
are
a long
getting it. Yeah,
time,
we got it.
and I think we have it now.
I do too. I do too. Which does not occur in some other leagues that we're going to talk about.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. The French league is an abomination of a league. And I'm sorry. If there's any team that wants the European Super League, it's PSG. Because that I'm sorry, league is the biggest waste of time in the world. You're looking at Germany is Germany, and I don't care what Byron Rob says. Every now and then a blind squirrel gets a nut with Leverkusen, but look, it's Bayern Munich. Bayern Munich's also already signed, I think, 2 players. So Bayern Munich's going to win again next year, and then you're going to see the Barcelona Real Madrid dance. I think that the only other league that seems to be compelling to watch is Serie A if you're looking at it for
Yeah.
parity, because that went down to the wire. And I don't know if you saw any highlights or any games. I didn't see the games. I saw some highlights though. But to see Napoli get another one and the
So
way it went down to the final day against the team that's playing in the Champions, not against like head to head, but they also were, had a shot to win the league. Who's playing in the Champions League final with Inter? That was fantastic. So props to Italy, big props to Italy.
I being nominally a Napoli fan because that's where my Italian side of the family's from.
Mm-hmm.
Uh it's great. I think I may have even said this on social media. It's really goddamn hard to win a league, period. It is tremendously hard when the entire social, economic, political, cultural fabric of your country is designed that you don't win shit.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that they've won two now in 3 years and have
Yep.
won two in two radically different ways, because
Yeah.
2 seasons ago, that was almost an atypically Italian team. It was
Mm-hmm.
attacking. You had that front three of Osimhen, Kvaratskhelia. This time they did it with like dark arts, Antonio Conti. It's weird rooting for a team where Lukaku's your striker. I'm just say that right now
I
because
was about to say that.
he legit sucks. Like, thank God the Italian league is slow. Like, he's just
Right.
well,
But he's got two. He's got two Italian league wins. He's got two of them now. He won with
I
Inter.
know, like it's really strange. Although, and maybe we'll talk a little bit about this when we talk about transfers. Darwin Nunez should go to Southern Europe
Mm-hmm.
because if you're fast and big, you can miss mad chances, but if you're fast and big, you'll get enough chances where you won't look so bad. Like, it's really like, but no, the fact that it went down to the last day, it was more nerve-wracking watching the next to last match days because
Mm-hmm.
it was simultaneous, and I was like, God damn it! Not only are they gonna have to win, they're gonna have to hope Inter does something, and
Mm-hmm.
then news of that penalty. And it's crazy because I'm like, I fucking hate Lazio. Like, I really hate Lazio, and I'm like, I'm like weirdly happy about this. I feel dirty. Uh really dirty. So yeah, no, Sarah, it's not of the same quality as when we were coming up. Like
Mm-hmm.
the
No, it's not.
90s was the
That was
90s
it.
early
No,
odds
and
was the golden age of Sarah.
had Syria done what they had the opportunity to do as far as getting securing TV rights internationally in the late 90s, early 2000s, we could be talking about a much different Serie A right now.
Yes. But the monopoly of the league in terms of one club from Turin,
Mm-hmm.
once that's been broken, like there's 6 to 7 teams in that league
Mm-hmm.
going into next season that
Yep.
potentially can win it.
Then have a shot. Yep.
And
All
that's healthy.
yeah,
That
it is.
that's very healthy.
It is.
Is the football as entertaining as, let's say, the Bundesliga? No, because the
No.
Bundesliga is all
It's
action.
hard to get it.
You
It's hard to get more entertaining than the Bundesliga. It's hard.
But it's a much, much, much more uh, you know, even keeled
Yeah.
league.
Yep.
Uh with genuine parity. And like I said, that's a sign of health. And if the league is doing well, wherever you are, G, if the league does well, the national team will do well.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yes.
that has been the Italian national team's problem.
Yeah.
One team consistently wins your league easily,
Mm-hmm.
the national team will suffer.
Right. Right. Yeah. So and granted though, I know Juve's been that squad that had a stranglehold for a while that stranglehold the Italian national team. But Juve's got a couple of Americans, so it's hard for me to I look, they could have easily done away with those two, and they didn't, and they kept them in the squad, and they kept them playing, and they finished fourth, and they're going to Champions League next year. So, which also helps the American team.
It helps the U.S. men's national team. And
It does.
I guess on the flip side too, there too, it part of Juventus's 4 or 5 years ago, they would have been gone because Juventus was like,
Mm-hmm.
can I get over the finish line today
Mm-hmm.
without any long-term vision? Because they've had to suffer. All of a sudden they are like, okay, well, what's the long-term game here? And
Right.
it is, hey, we're not just going to get the best Italian players because.
Yeah. And good.
Yeah,
Good. Yeah. Good.
which historically, you brought up the Bundesliga, that's part of the
And
problem in
that's part of the
Germany.
problem.
But we'll talk about that because one German player isn't going there.
Well, let's go.
All right.
Let's go. I think let's go ahead and move on. I mean, this is the off-season Olympics have started, even with Champions League final coming up. So we have a lot of hopes that hopefully don't get dashed too much because I know we have been
Oh,
every offseason you hand wring, hope when you get that guy, hope when you get that guy, hope when you get that guy. Don't wait until the end of August. I can't stand the fact that I'm not even sure if this is still a thing, but when the transfer window wouldn't end till the end of August and you're already 3 weeks into your season in the Premier League, and actually most leagues around the country, around the continent, and you're still hoping to bring in that guy. So hopefully, I know they were talking about changing that. I don't know if they did. I haven't kept up with that
I,
story.
I I think it's still the end of August,
Yeah.
but yeah, it, I think what we're seeing is, with the exception, there's always going to be a couple late, transfer day,
Right.
deadline day deals.
You can transfer out, but you may not be able to come into a
The
league. Yeah.
teams that do most of their business earlier in the window, it's just more suited to success because
Yes.
you can bludgeon these guys in. They have
Yes.
a preseason. They are familiar with who they're actually
Right.
playing with.
Yeah.
So,
Well, the teams have to know what they know who you want and know what you need, and then do what you have to do to go get them. You
mhm.
just have to do it. And you can't wait until the end when you start getting into some more strict negotiations where a team may be going, okay, look, we really got to move this player and may not take as much or something like that. But you're also running the risk of losing out completely, which has happened.
And
That's what listen, Arsenal wanted Isak and they didn't press it. They didn't press it, and now he's at Newcastle scoring 22 goals.
and he's probably staying at
Probably
Newcastle.
staying because Newcastle wants
Yeah.
120 million for him,
And
and he
they
doesn't
have
really want to
gambled.
go.
And they have guaranteed Champions League football. That's the
Exactly.
biggest thing.
Exactly.
They have Champions League football.
Where is he? Like, why? Why? I'm getting paid. I'm here. We got Champions League. We won the League Cup. We got a trophy.
He's
I got to
staying
celebrate. What's the point?
he's staying put for at least one season, and
Mm-hmm.
maybe I'm reading the tea leaves too heavily. A certain manager is now going to be at Real Madrid who likes to play with an out and out striker.
Mm-hmm.
You don't think he'd make a nice addition to, him and then some combo of Mbappe and,
Yeah.
right behind him? Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. You could see it. You could
I
see
can
it.
see it.
Yeah. Well,
Uh
because they're in a huge rebuild. I believe they made him. They signed what's his name? The Bournemouth kid. I got it right over here. Dean Hoyson. Matt froze. All right, I'm gonna keep talking about Matt's unfreezing. But Dean Hoyson, I believe, from Bournemouth just signed with Real Madrid, and he is a Dutch international. I'm sorry, he's a Spanish international, of course, born in Amsterdam, but spent most of his life in Spain and is a Spanish citizen and is now going to be all right. Matt's back,
all right.
but did you
Last
hear
I
me?
heard was last I heard was Dean Hoyson.
Yeah, how
Yeah.
he's already moved over there because they do have needs in defense, and they brought him in. Kid's 20 years old, big, 6'5", and he's not expected to come in and take over that role right away. He can cook for a little bit. So,
Exactly.
but you see, Real Madrid is listen, they're not happy this season. I mean, you didn't win anything, knocked out in the quarterfinals, which is a sacrilege in Madrid. So they're I'm speaking. I'm sure if you're picking up on my tone, I'm basically saying Arsenal, pay attention.
Oh no.
Pay attention.
We've talked
Pay
about this
attention.
before. They want Saliba.
Yeah, they do want Saliba.
In
They do want
in in
Saliba.
in, in a perfect world, Alonso's going in not this season, but probably next season with a back three of Hoyson on the left, Rudiger uh, in the center, and Saliba as your right-sided center back.
Right. Right.
That
And
that
look, I'm a huge Saliba supporter. I thought that's probably been Arteta's best coaching move with the way he handled that transfer. That was remarkable. He knew he's like, this kid's special. He's not ready. He needs another year of regular first team play. Then we'll bring him in. And they brought him in, and he's been the best, if not the best top three center backs in the league. And Arsenal's defense has been, they only, 34 this year. That's all they gave up. And they've been great. And even with Gabriel getting hurt. But if you can get if you can get nine figures for him, there's plenty of solid center backs you can find throughout the league. And we need a goal scorer. And the problem with that is when Arsenal needs a goal scorer, teams know you need a goal scorer. They're going to make you pay a little bit more because they know that's what you need. You can't.
and and unless you're going to do some kind of swap, it's kind of hard to facilitate that because we're sort of in the same position. I mean, it's no secret, Darwin Nunez is
You
likes to
still have
pie in
Mo
the sky.
Salah. Shut up.
Yeah.
You still have Mo Salah. Shut up.
But you realize how many assists he would have had if we didn't, if he had
Yeah.
someone who could put the ball in the back of the net.
Yeah.
Uh,
I was hoping he'd get 20. I really was. Assist. I was hoping he'd get 20. But still, I mean,
yeah,
20, 28, and 18 is pretty
it's,
special.
it's
Yeah.
kind
That's
of
one of the
ridiculous.
greatest Premier League seasons of all time.
Yeah.
And he did that with 3 or 4 games left to play.
And again, without really a functional number nine at the end of the season.
Yeah.
Uh so but no, so where was I going with this?
I'm sorry. I did totally derailed you. I got to get off.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. I got my
but
Wu
yeah,
Tang
no,
shirt on. I'm feeling a little hyped.
they might want to, yeah, well, they might want to cash in on him at some point. And look, when Madrid comes calling for you,
gotta listen.
Oh, like that's the one thing. Like I can't get angry when someone is like, okay, I want to go to Madrid because it's like, okay, you're doing this not just for a badge, you're also doing this for yourself,
Mm-hmm.
your legacy. And the best
Mm-hmm.
way you can ensure that is go to a place where, like, the Champions League is conveyor belt.
Right.
Right?
Right. I mean, there were only two clubs you could do that with, and not Manchester City doesn't exist anymore. Manchester United, excuse me. So right now
It's
it's them.
Real Madrid.
Even though, who just inked the new deal? Yamin Lamal just inked the new deal with Barcelona. Just inked the new deal. Sorry, this 17-year-old kid is. It's hard to say he's the best player in the world,
He's,
but
but we see
tell
what's
me,
coming.
tell me who's better than he is, and that's my point.
That's
That's my
yeah.
point.
He's in the conversation, and
Right. No one wants to say a 17-year-old is the best player in the world, but no one can also tell you who is definitively better than he is.
better than him.
Yeah.
The
And that's the
one
issue.
thing I'll say about that though is, and it's good that they inked him long term.
Yes.
Them not getting to the Champions League final does, however, hurt their chances of bringing more people in
It does.
immediately because they are still. It's not that the shine of Barcelona has gone away. They still are in like monetary hell.
I was gonna say
Like
yeah. Their
like
books are still wild right now.
crazy.
They
Like
got three chefs in there
my
cooking those
my
books.
understanding is some of the Coutinho money that they owe us is like being held by a bank.
Wow.
Like
Yeah.
they yeah, like it's so like they
Mm-hmm.
kind of needed
Yeah.
Saturday.
Yeah.
They in some ways. Now the crazy thing is, I think they have the manager and I think they have the squad and I know they have the academy
Yeah.
where they can still, you know, ride this out. But
Yeah.
like if they won that trophy,
That could have changed their
yeah,
yeah.
that could
Because
change
then
a
then
lot.
then 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 they can command significantly more sponsorship money. I wouldn't say this. Had they even finaled,
Yeah, that's all they
that
would.
would have been good
Yeah,
enough.
that would have been good
That would
enough
have been good enough.
because they're eyeing Luis Diaz, and it's like, and I'll give Luis Diaz a lot of credit because he could have been that guy and been like, oh, I'm gonna. He's like, look, I'm happy being at Liverpool. If Barcelona can afford me, I would love to go to Barcelona because I'm Latin American and my dream is to go
Of
to
course, that's the clubs I
that.
grew up watching.
But like he knows the deal. He's like, they don't have the money
Right,
at the moment, so I'm not
right.
gonna be an asshole. I'm I'm good. I'm enjoying this.
But
So
that and that's and that's a testament to him as well. To be like, you know what? Yes, of course, I would love to go there, but this place is pretty cool.
yeah.
I like it here. I'm good. My family likes it here. We're fine. If we could go there, yeah, of course, that would be a dream come true. But he's also saying sometimes you may not want your dreams to come true. Maybe it's best just to keep it as a dream. Because
Mhm.
sometimes when dreams become a reality, you see the flaw in what your dreams were. And when you know that's a possibility and you're in a good situation, I'm just saying it's very wise by him to just say, I'm good. Y'all work on yourself. When you're ready, yes, I would love to come.
Yes.
But I'm
Mhm.
good. I'm good. And when you are ready, you better be really ready. Because where I am, they are ready. And I'm winning here. So that's all positive on that note by him. So props for that.
So yeah,
So
let's talk about the positivity.
yeah,
We know Trent's leaving, and we've
yes,
known that for time. And
yes,
I've spoken my piece about Scouse Psycho Army and they're booing, which I'll say this, you didn't see any of that
I
last.
was gonna say they seem to have swallowed that this weekend.
So
They
I
were very
think
complimentary this week.
I think certain people had to get that out of their system.
Yeah, and also
And
getting reprimanded by Klopp was a
yeah, when
you know the fans
Jurgen,
were like, oh
Arne Slot, and straight up Virgil van Dijk are all like a bunch of idiots.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
that I think
yeah.
that's
He's
critical.
won two Premier Leagues and a Champions League with you. He's won
Everything.
everything.
Isn't
Stop.
Yeah, this is not Michael Owen leaving.
No.
This isn't, Raheem Sterling faking injury to go to
Right.
he let him leave.
Right.
But I mean, talking about being proactive, so it looks like Frimpong is all but done.
Mm-hmm.
Uh I would have gone for a more defensive minded right back, but see, this is the thing. If we're bringing in the left back that I think we're going to bring in, I'm actually kind of cool with this. And
Mm-hmm.
he is platooning with Connor Bradley, who
Mm-hmm.
I think is going to get better. But
I like Connor Bradley.
yeah,
I like him a lot.
you can't
Yeah.
leave the keys to the kingdom to a 20-year-old.
Right.
That's just not going to happen. Uh Speaking of said left back, we're just getting the Hungarian version, younger version of Andy Robertson and Milos
Mm-hmm.
Kerkez, who I like a lot.
Yeah.
Uh, it's weird because usually Liverpool do exactly the opposite of what I think, and it's like, oh, Matt likes that guy, fuck you.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have the exact opposite profile.
Right.
I really, when I say a Robertson regen, he's very similar, and that will give you some of that defensive stability on that other side, especially because in the slot system, it's not like, vintage Klopp where both fullbacks went up. Only one moves forward and one stops at the halfway line.
Mm-hmm.
Herkes, I imagine, is going to be when Frimpong plays. Hey, I'm chilling here.
Right.
Bomb forward, help, mo,
Right.
etc. But the big one, and this was a name that I hadn't even considered. Florian Wirtz?
I didn't see that one. Let
Oh,
me- Go ahead. Keep going. Talk about that one.
so yeah, I mean, I just kind of assumed he was either going to go to Bayern Munich because you're young and German, and we assume that automatically you're going to go to Bayern.
Has
Uh,
that been completed yet, or is that just something that's still in the rumors?
hey, we've reached personal terms. It's
Okay.
a matter of, so here's the deal. Everyone knew that Leverkusen was going to get blown up, especially once Alonso was leaving. I assumed Florian Wirtz was either going to go to Bayern again because you're young and German, and that's just what you do, or Man City because right, isn't he the KDB replacement, or isn't that what
Mm-hmm.
we all thought?
Right.
So apparently we had been talking to him since January, and it really came down to, or it seemed to come down to us and Bayern. And this is where,
Bayern already took Jonathan Tah.
but on a free, this is
Yeah,
where it
that's true.
gets dicey because we'll be paying in excess of 120
He
for, but it's Florian Wirtz and he's 22.
is young. Yeah. And he's an
And,
attacking midfielder.
and let's be real, he arguably Germany's best player at the Euros.
Oh,
Him or
my memory's
Jamal,
going. Yeah.
him or Jamal, and I don't know. It's weird saying this. I
Yeah,
know.
I think Jamal stuck out of my head. Musiala was just amazing that tournament. So, but yeah, now I'm thinking about it. Yeah, you're right. I was so enamored with Ta as well. I was. I was like, dude, who is this dude, man? I mean, this guy is ridiculous.
Well, he got hyped, and then Leverkusen was bad, so like
Right.
forgotten about him, and then it was like,
Hmm.
oh shit, yeah, you're good. Uh, I'm it's really weird. We're finally replacing Felipe Coutinho 6 years after we traded Felipe Coutinho.
Yeah, but you didn't
That's the
really need
closest.
to.
No, that's true. That's true.
Yeah.
Uh, but this goes back to the whole. And look, I think we still need somebody up front. As good a season as Mo had, there's going to be regression,
Yeah.
and you need to. Trent is leaving. I'm not
Hmm.
going to miss his defense. I'll tell you this right now.
Well, yeah, because it didn't exist really,
Yeah,
but yeah,
we'll miss his creativity.
yeah.
How do you replace that creativity? You go get Florian.
Yeah, that's true. He may not be in the same position, but he does provide that same level of distribution and goal scoring opportunities that Trent would do as well. So yeah, there's a way to do that shit, especially when you talk about Frimpong can come in and be that attacking defender mindset, but you're not going to have so much of a gap in the defense when you have a guy like Verts coming in as well. That need is a bit unnecessary. I see this is some. I don't want to hear about Liverpool getting better. You got to be kidding me, man. Because look, there are a lot of clubs.
I knew this one, so it got brought up about a week and a half ago, and I
Mm,
was like, "This," and this is PTSD. This is going back to, and I'm like, "This reeks of Caicedo. He's already agreed stuff with Bayern Munich. This is," and then when I heard that Edwards and Hughes flew to Boston, because this is what we do, we're given Liverpool, even though it's run by, a bunch of billionaires in Boston, is actually run like a sports club in the old, socialist world. We're given
right.
a fucking budget. Sometimes that
Yeah.
budget is big, sometimes it's small. When the brass go to Boston, that means we need more money.
Yeah.
So when I heard that they were flying out there, I was like, okay, maybe there's something more into this.
Hmm. Hmm.
Uh what we're hearing is as follows. City kind of dropped out mainly because of the charges.
Yeah.
They're like, if we spend that much money when there's so much uncertainty, that A, that looks bad, B, we might know what we're gonna get hit with. I am so glad that Michael Edwards is back as a proper, because remember, and I'll give him credit because he gave us McAllister, Gravenberch, Sabazalai, and Endo for what he's worth. But like, remember when like our sporting director was Klopp's drinking buddy?
Yeah.
That's how we got into the Caicedo mess because
Yeah.
Brighton called him. They didn't call Klopp. They called him, and they were like, "Hey, man, we really don't want to sell this guy to Chelsea." So,
Yeah.
uh, I am so glad we have an actual director of football again
Yeah.
because they got this done. They got this done rather secretively. And the biggest polling point was he met with our brass, sat down with Arne Slot. There was a detailed, hey, this is how you fit in this team, this is how you fit in this squad. He went to Munich
Hmm.
and got a similar presentation, and Vincent Compagnie and look, I know who Vincent Compagnie is. 2 years ago, I didn't know who my manager was, literally.
Hmm.
No one had
Yeah.
heard. But I think this says something, he was given a clear indication of what his role was going to be. Vincent Company effectively was like, "Hey man, Germany vibes,"
Yeah.
and he was like, "Okay, nah, you're not really." Oh, and Byron was like, "Oh, your sister's good. We'll bring her into the fold." And apparently that did not go over well with Florian's dad. He's
Ah,
just like,
okay.
"Oh, okay."
Yeah, I just looked up
Yeah.
his sisters at Werder Bremen.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so and apparently Leverkusen's thrilled because they're like they, unlike Dortmund, are like, we're just not gonna sell. Jonathan Tah can go to you on a free.
Yeah, but we're not selling
No
to Bayern
control.
though.
We're not selling our players to you so you can just win this league
Yeah, a year in and year out.
here.
Yeah.
So I'm still kind of trying to process this because I was like, I knew we were going to make at least one or two big signings this summer. This is the one that I didn't think this one was actually going to happen.
Yeah.
I did not have this on my bingo card. So
Well, it's the transfer game is fun to play. I'm not gonna lie, I'm not very good at it because now there's a team I support. But the we'll revisit this as we get a little bit deeper into the summer and see what's really gonna possibly
yeah,
shake out when we have more teams that are involved in it. But why don't we go ahead and move forward? Of course, I thought the show was going to be over at 10:30, and we're only on topic three. But
well, we
um, let's go ahead. Go ahead. I know you wanted to briefly talk about some, you know, the way they do promotions and relegations in various leagues is
so
not random, but everybody kind of has their thing, and even you'll see in country league to league could be different in their promotion and relegation. So go ahead and talk about what happened there, and then go ahead and discuss what's happening in the Eastern block of teams and how those teams are going to fare in the European competitions.
this is actually gonna be really brief. Uh, I want to do a longer Eastern Europe vid with Chelsea Mike, so we'll figure that
Okay.
out. Uh, the Ukrainian league wrapped over the weekend. My Dynamo Kiev won the league. Been a pretty good year for my clubs. Shakhtar Donetsk won the cup, so they're guaranteed Europa League football. And then Politsaya and Alexandria. I do have to dig up their full name because it's something. It's ridiculous. It's like Alexandria X-ray machine radiology something something. Uh, get Conference League. I wanted to mention this only in so much that, much like Scotland, there is in an automatic Champions League qualification spot. Dynamo Kiev will be in a playoff. Now, do I think they're good enough to get through the playoffs and potentially get to the final pot? Yeah, probably. We have to hope that one, if not all of these Ukrainian squads at least progress or do half decent in Europe. And the reason I say this is the war is now in, it's going to be in February, year four.
Year four, yeah.
This league needs money. Every league in Eastern Europe needs money. This league
Right.
needs money and needs money desperately. And you know this because one of the teams that was going to be playing in the relegation promotion playoff, which starts this week, uh, declined because getting promoted would have effectively led to bankruptcy. They
Hmm.
can't afford going into a bigger league. So this is, I mean, there was all the support and all that initially. The problem with wars, and particularly long wars, is it's really hard to keep momentum.
It does, and it depletes
So
resources tremendously.
it's going to be rough. And weirdly enough, I am most concerned with Shakhtar, which pre-invasion would seem crazy. Their model, which is buy Brazilian kid when he's 17,
Hmm.
shine him up and then sell him for a profit, doesn't work in wartime settings because 17-year-old Brazilian kid is not going to a war zone.
No, no.
And
Parents don't care how much you're going to pay them. They're like, no, thank you. I'm
and
not
they
sending my kid over there.
they let their domestic recruitment and scouting go to crap.
Mm,
And that is rather concerning to me. So that's all I'm going to say on that front.
hmm.
This other topic, though, so cast your minds way back to about a year ago when I was doing the series before the Euros, and I did that episode on the two Germanys.
Yes,
Uh
which is fantastic. It's
I
so
tried.
good.
I
It's
tried.
so good. I've listened to it twice. It's so
I
good.
try so. And I said in that episode towards the end, I was like, look, there are still, Germany has been a united country now for like 40 years.
Hmm.
But the fissures still exist. And the spillover in terms of
Mhm.
football has been massive.
Mhm.
Right, because all of a sudden you had these socialist clubs that overnight had to learn how to compete in a capitalist environment. And that was a recipe for disaster. And what you saw happen was, a lot of these East German clubs, even though they're, academies, although they've had to shut down a lot of those academies because they can't afford it, were a lot better than the West German clubs' academies. They got raided. I repeat, Michael Ballack came up through a club by the name of Karl Marx, FC Karl Marxstadt. Like, but
Wow.
they get raided. And so, like, things were really bad in the 90s and the 2000s because the way that the German FA viewed 40 years of East German football was it didn't exist,
Hmm.
which is horrible.
Hmm.
Regardless of what you feel about that regime or something, people lived there and they saw their clubs win stuff. You are a Washington gridiron football team fan.
Hmm.
You watched the 80s and the 90s. You've seen your
Hmm.
team win Super Bowls, right?
Right.
So, and in the case of East Germany, it's really crazy. So, this is the best
Hmm.
way I can frame it. Imagine the United States doesn't exist tomorrow.
Hmm.
I'm part of Canada.
Hmm.
And we get absorbed into Canada, would have better healthcare. Uh, but then they tell you, oh, you rooted for that team in DC. Yeah, that didn't happen. There was no Super Bowl.
Right.
There are only Grey Cups.
Right. Right.
How would you feel?
Right. Right.
So that was the case.
Screw you is how you feel.
Yeah, that's what
That's
it
how
is.
you feel. Yeah.
Yeah, how do you feel? So that was the case in Germany for a long time. Then finally, about 10 years ago, they were like, okay, well, we're going to include the East German championships with with an asterisk. But these happened, the clubs can claim them. The last major stumbling block, however, is the way that you do relegation and promotion. So you have the Bundesliga, you have the Bundesliga 2, you have the third division, and then you have four regional
Regional
divisions.
divisions. Yeah.
So all of the regional divisions, with the exception of Regional Division Northeast, which incidentally is what used to be East Germany,
Hmm.
the winner of that league automatically qualifies for the third league. Automatically.
Hmm.
The winner of the Northeast League has to play a two-legged playoff against the best not formerly East German club.
Mm.
And that's been a real problem. And that's one of the reasons why a lot of these former East German clubs never get out
Right.
because it's hard enough to win your league. It's harder to then have to play a two-legged playoff against a club whose, youth, in some cases, their youth program it has a bigger budget than you do.
Right. 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 Right.
It's damn
Financial
it's designed to keep these clubs out.
out. Yeah.
That may, however, be changing. All of these clubs, but also other, clubs that used to compete in the East German League. But more importantly, RB Leipzig, that even though they play in the East, have nothing to do with
No,
old East
they
Germany.
don't have any of that history, and they don't have any of that economic style.
Uh,
That they never had to deal with that.
exactly. But you know your audience, right?
Right.
St. Pauli, because they like justice, and this is a justice issue. And even apparently the likes of Dortmund and stuff
Hmm.
are willing to start to sign off. There's this petition that started, and it's gaining momentum because the system is patently unfair. It
Right.
is. And look, again, regardless of how you want to think about, the history and the politics, and believe me, I mean, the Berlin Wall existed for a reason. People want
For
to leave
yeah,
to punish an entire segment of a country
right,
because of their past and because of built-in stereotypes about
right,
backwardness, etc.
right.
It's just wrong.
Yeah, it is.
There are clubs in the former East that have history and, should be at least in the third, if not the second tier of German football.
Right.
Again, we talk about Brentford in England. If you're a German club, particularly a club with a disadvantage,
Mm-hmm.
look at what Union Berlin did and take detailed notes. Are they going
Mm-hmm.
to win the Bundesliga anytime soon? No. Are they going to get relegated anytime soon? Probably not. They're
Mm-hmm.
they're they're here to stay.
Yeah.
So making the relegation promotion playoffs, or I should say promotion more equitable is a big deal. And,
Mm-hmm.
if you're interested, the last leg of that playoff is Saturday. So Lokomotive Leipzig, which is a club I despise because their fans are skinheads. They would want to like
Mm-hmm.
horrible things to me.
Right.
But and the wrong kinds of skinheads, excuse me, because there are not there.
Not yeah,
But
not the
yeah,
punk rock
not
skinheads.
not
Yeah,
the
yeah.
good
Not them.
skinheads, not
Yeah.
the yeah. So, but that if they get into the third league, I do generally believe, and I believe this is going to be up for at least discussion sometime at the end of June when
Mhm.
the German FA holds their meetings, and we'll see what happens. This is a long time coming.
Yeah. Before we get into our final topic, gotta take a quick break. I will be right back. Okay, and we're back. After a brief intermission, which you all will not see because I paused the recording. Let's go ahead and fall into our last topic, which is kind of like wrap up Europe. Let's wrap up the Europa League. Let's wrap up the Conference League and give a preview of what we think about the Champions League final. So I think we should just go ahead and start at the bottom and then work our way up. If you want to say, I mean, I hate saying it that way, but that's what it is as far as where the clubs finish in the leagues that are in the top five leagues. But we have a team that we discussed about how this is improperly placed and I'm not saying they have to prevent something like this from happening, but Chelsea winning the Europa Conference League, so Chelsea fans can say they're the first team to win all three cups when it's like you shouldn't be there. You're there because your team sucked the previous year. That's why you're there. And then you get to beat up on teams with names that I can't even pronounce. So but Chelsea winning, they won a final against Real Betis, who is somewhat of a stable La Liga club, but a 4-1 final, and they didn't have the most difficult time getting there. They didn't seem to have much of a challenge. I mean, winning
The greatest challenge they experienced was Polish police,
exactly
water cannons on their fans.
right. So it is what it is, and I think that while I still am much a fan of this competition, and I think it's great, and I'm so glad the representative next year from England's going to be Nottingham Forest. But the I'm hoping though that at some point soon we do get a winner of this competition that is not from a Big Five league because that hasn't happened yet.
Yes, it has.
Really,
Last
who won the
year,
first one?
Olympiacos.
Okay, but they don't count. And the reason why is
Oh,
no, they don't count. And the reason why is Olympiacos is the Celtic of the Greek league. They're the Bayern Munich of the German league.
but but
And
but, but it's still great.
and and they've beaten Arsenal several times in Champions League. So I don't want to
Well,
count
well,
those
but
bastards.
but I
And
I can put.
also, when I was in Greece for a
Well,
few
we
days.
know this. We're both AKA Athens
Yeah.
fans,
Yeah.
so
But what
yeah.
makes it even worse is
Yeah.
the tour guide we were with that day had a hatred of Olympiacos that you would not believe. And even though Panathinaikos is that other club that has their fair share of success, and he was like, "Nah, they're okay. I don't mind them." But he couldn't stand Olympiacos. He was like, "Those snobs, They're just
there's that class tension.
exactly.
Yeah.
So had Panathinaikos won that, or what's that club? That club in Thessaloniki one who won the Greek league a few years ago. I mean, a few,
Alk?
yeah, PAOK. They won it
Yeah.
like 6 years ago or something like
Yeah.
that. You know, if had they won, or even IK or Panathinaikos, yeah, I would think I would. But the fact that it was Olympiacos is just gonna be like, I just
Yeah,
can't. I'm
but
not dissing my friend in Greece. I'm not doing that. They don't count.
but I do. I look. I being an AK Athens fan, I share said guide or cab drivers staying for
That
Olympiacos.
guy was awesome, man. I'd love to run into that dude again.
But
He was great.
that that showed, and like you said, Nottingham Forest is the England representative.
Yes,
That makes sense.
that makes sense.
That makes sense.
I would like to see Brentford. I'd like to see Brighton and Hove in at Wolves
This
if they weren't. That's the team I'd like to see in there.
this past season, this is an anomaly. Like
I hope so.
Chelsea got to this competition because they weren't very good in the league last year.
Right.
Let's be real.
And that's the reason why I didn't pay attention like I had to pay attention in years
If
past.
this
And
is
when I saw Chelsea was in there, I was like, well, this is over.
if this is a reoccurring trend, ooh, yeah, that's a problem.
That's a problem.
But we'll see what happens next season.
Yeah.
You have Forest in there, those middling German and Spanish and
Mm-hmm.
Italian.
Like you got Fiorentina going in there
Yeah,
from
like
Serie A.
that.
Like that makes sense.
That makes
That makes
sense.
sense. Yeah.
And I was just lamenting. Look, Ukrainian teams have to do something. Chelsea Mike's Ukrainian club, Dnipro, which no longer exists because it was a Ponzi scheme. Most of their best players are on Politsaya.
Mm.
I wouldn't be shocked. There's a scenario next season where Politsaya will get relegated domestically, but wind up in the final of this tournament because
Yeah.
they actually have a core of really young, very talented players
Mm-hmm.
who were at a big club, but that club just imploded.
Right.
Uh, so I agree with you, but at the same time, I can't read too much into this because
Yeah.
Chelsea shouldn't have been there in the first place.
Right.
This is an anomaly.
Right. Right. And yes. And so I'm gonna do the same thing. It's not gonna turn me off of this competition. Because we're seeing the teams from the other leagues that are in there. You have Rayo Vallecano in there from Spain. So, yeah, these are teams that should be in conference league. This is what should be there.
This is
So
what it's
hopefully
for.
we'll see a bit more because these aren't the teams that are going to reload before next year because they had a down year. These are teams that are going to say, "Great, we qualified for a European competition." And that's why it stinks is that Chelsea had a down year, qualified for this, reloaded with the funds that they have, and then were able to walk through the league.
Yep.
And that's what you don't want to see. And I could even say it's not like Chelsea Mike was like rah rah let's go with this game. He was not. So
No, no,
yeah.
not at
So
all.
yeah, it's not at all.
He's the
Winning that
same.
league means that you had a bad if a big six team, if you can call it that anymore, I'm not sure you can call it that anymore, but if a team that's not a team that's won a Premier League title, if they go to this competition, that means that that's how much they struggled the previous year. That's all that means. So they need to put this trophy along with the preseason trophy that you won, like the Emirates Cup that Arsenal seems to give themselves every year because they play against two crap teams. Then that's what they should do with this competition because it's really not it's not for you, and it's a
This was
shame that they had to play that competition.
this was an anomaly.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in terms of the next trophy up, I think we can speak, however, to maybe some issues with the new format.
Yes,
Uh
agreed.
so Spurs, they have a European trophy.
Hey, they got one.
Yeah.
They got one. And you know what? All the trolling that Spurs fans have done to Arsenal is deserved. It's deserved. Arsenal, you finaled twice in that competition recently, and you didn't win. They did. And you know what? You can't control who you play against.
Yep.
Spurs luckily played against a dumpster fire of Manchester United. And Spurs, who finished literally a heartbeat outside of relegation, but you just have to win one game. That's all you got to do. You got to win one game. And if things work for you in that particular game, you're going to win. And listen, I will say this. I A lot of my friends who are Arsenal fans are saying Spurs cannot win this competition because they can't get a European trophy before we do. And I couldn't bring myself to pull for Manchester United.
So I spoke to you off air
Yes.
about this. I wanted to read your thoughts.
Okay.
My buddy, shout out Andy Miller, same sort of thing. It's like, and I'm sure if you were from London, it would be different.
Right.
But I think a lot of Arsenal fans this side of the Atlantic, the whole Spurs rivalry is sort of artificial.
It is. And look,
Uh,
I used to say this to G because he would play into it as well. But also, G didn't get into Arsenal until Arsenal wasn't that good anymore.
mm,
He got in to the team when, we were competing for top four. When, Arsenal was never a threat to win the league but that's when he got into Arsenal. So, of course, at that time, yeah, Spurs were a team that, and you hear about the history of it and you go, okay, cool. Because when you started watching the club, they weren't competing for the league every year. When I started following the club, they're competing for the league every year, and we had to deal with Manchester United every freaking year.
precisely.
That's why a
Precisely.
lot of
Precisely.
American fans, because if you grew up playing the game like I did, and then once we got access to it, and I was an Arsenal fan because I had a poster. My dad had to go to England. He came back with a poster, and it had Ian Wright. I was in high school. Boom. Ever since then, I've been an Arsenal fan. So when I started to follow it and I could watch games, it was Manchester United, Manchester United, Manchester United, Manchester United. And this is after Liverpool's dominance of League One.
Mhm.
So Liverpool wasn't even really a problem for me. It was Manchester
Well,
United. I
and they're
hated them. And then it was Chelsea, and I hated them.
precisely. That's so there's no Liverpool Arsenal rivalry.
No, and I don't think that ever
There's
really has been.
1989, but other than that, let's be real. Other than that weird period in the late 80s, early 90s, and like kind of, I guess now, when the hell have we ever been good at the same time?
Right.
Never,
Never.
never,
Never. Yeah.
never.
Yeah. So
It's oh,
go ahead.
if we can use Iranian Revolution speak, the
Right.
great Satan has always been Man United,
Absolutely.
and Chelsea, after a lunatic Russian billionaire bought them,
Right.
then became Little Satan.
Right. Right.
Like,
And that's what it was.
yeah,
So, and then when you go out there and you hear it, and it's the older heads that have this kind of thing going on, unless you're actually are from North London. And then when I go to watch this game, all I'm thinking about is I'm thinking trophy count. Look, Spurs have to have 15 good seasons in a row to catch Arsenal in the trophy count. So I don't care about that. And I'm just thinking at this going, I do when I remember talking to Mike about this, where he's complaining about Manchester United and they won the Europa League that year. And I'm sitting here going, even when you guys suck, you still win trophies. And it drives me insane. The fact that
last
they were in
last
this,
season, last season,
they won them last season.
they had no business winning that
They
FA.
had no business, but they won. And you're sitting there as an Arsenal fan, especially those of us when we got in the game on the tail end of Arsenal dominance after the third Premier League title, and you're sitting there and you lose to Birmingham City in the League Cup final. Birmingham City, you lost. Like, that's what we're used to seeing in finals. And to see Man U in a final when they're in 16th, 17th place, you're going, I don't want to see y'all win anything ever again. Take it to the flip side. Now we're going to talk about Spurs. The reason why I don't really care about Spurs is because Spurs fans troll Arsenal for doing better than Arsenal did. That's all. You don't even troll Arsenal for winning trophies. You troll Arsenal with the fact that you don't have a St. Totteringham's Day where you finish above them in the league. Like that was your level of trophy for the longest time that I've been a supporter. So I'm looking at this going, okay, well, the big the big jump that happened for Spurs was Gareth Bale. That was it. You got Gareth Bale. And
And
then
to a
you
lesser extent, because that money also paid for this, Modric.
yeah,
Yeah,
yes. And then you get Harry Kane. And then you get Son Heung-min. And then you start putting in real investment into the club. You've Champions League final, you cup final, and you lose every time. You lose every time. And listen, I it's been no secret that I'm a Son guy. I think that guy's awesome. Big fan of his. And to see a team that finished 17th in the Premier League beat Manchester United and win the Europa League, I'm not going to act like I watched the game or I smiled or I cheered or anything like that. But I was like, hey, you know what, Spurs? You all have been trying. You've been trying. You haven't been simply trying to make money as a club. You've been trying to win trophies and you've been unsuccessful. You got one. Good for you. You got one. I'll accept all the trolling because it's not like Arsenal have been, just not even good at all. It's like, well, you hadn't even good anyway. No, you had your shot. You had your chances, Arsenal. You blew it. You blew it. I can go back to Jens Lehmann making a horrible dive at Samuel Eto'o so you go down to 10 men in the first half of the '06 final in Champions League. I can go back to that because I remember watching that game going, that's it, man. Even though Saul Campbell scores a header to go up in the first half, you still knew they have Samuel Eto'o and they have Ronaldinho. They're going to beat you. You knew they were going to win. So you have had your chances to win European trophies. You've had 3 European finals, 3. You've semifinaled multiple times before the Wenger slide happened. You semifinaled several times, but you couldn't get over the hump. This year, I had a hope for about a week that Arsenal might, because I saw the other teams left going, Arsenal could win this. And then you lay an egg against PSG. So for Spurs, yes, Europa League is watered down. I think we should go to this next. But you can only play against who's in front of you.
and it's way easier. I mean, we've roasted Ange on this
Top down.
podcast
Yeah.
because of his tactical inflexibility. You played a manager who is somehow more tactically inflexible
Then you
than you. And at halftime, you called off the dogs. You said, no, I'm going to go to a low block because they're not scoring today.
right.
Good.
Good. Good for you. And you
Yeah.
won. And you won. And you gave your fan base something that they've been clamoring for since what, 2006? When they won a League Cup, I think. So
2006,
something
2005.
like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's been a long time since y'all have won anything. And you won a League Cup. So you know what? Good for you. You can only play against a team that's in front of you. Good for you. And, you know, I will never, ever pull for Manchester United. I just won't. They could be playing against Real Madrid in a cup final. And I'm going to be like, give them number 15 or 16. I don't care. I don't want to see Manchester United win. I just don't want to see it because I had to deal with that when I first got into the sport of them being so dominant. So dominant. 13 Premier League champion. That means so dominant. And so, you know, I won't say I'm happy for Spurs because how much I hate Man United because I am genuinely feel like see what happens when you actually try what you truly think is best for your club. You got something.
I, I,
Even a watered down Europa League, you got something.
I was glad United lost.
Mm-hmm.
I'm happy for Son because much like you, I respect, mad respect. Uh, I guess I'm happy for Ange because of the Celtic love, but like it's also really weird too because if I'm Daniel Levy, I'm like, thank you for the trophy. you need to go someplace else, dude.
Bye.
Yeah.
Yeah, you do. You do. You really do. You really do. Anybody can go on a run. Anybody can. And you can get a run of games in a because essentially this is a playoff.
Yeah.
And we've seen teams make runs in playoffs in several different sports that win that probably shouldn't have. We've seen that happen several times. So I'm not saying that it's like so it's not shocking, I would say, but if you're looking at it from just the Spurs team as a whole, they have to make wholesale changes.
Yeah.
I mean, they haven't finished 17th, I don't think, ever in the Premier League. I mean, you are a heartbeat from you're lucky that the teams that relegated were just that bad.
And if you go down the pyramid, it's so weird too because, excuse me, the table, they have, I think, a positive goal difference.
-1. That's it.
-1. But
Minus
that's the
one.
thing.
That's it.
They've scored, other than Liverpool, they scored the second most goals in the league.
Yeah.
But that also means they let up
Mm-hmm.
that same number plus
Yeah.
plus.
They gave up more goals than any team that was relegated that wasn't relegated except for Wolves.
Yeah. That's not sustainable.
Yeah.
So,
That's it.
which I guess,
Like 65 goals is ridiculous.
that's
That's
crazy, man.
ridiculous. And just shows you how bad the teams that got relegated are. They gave up 80, 82, and 86. That just shows you that it's not like that's just you had three championship teams playing in the Premier League this year.
Playing
You
in the
really did.
Premier League this year.
Three these are when the gap is 13 points from 18 to 17 and the three teams that got relegated a month and a half ago, that lets you know. Because as I've said on this show multiple times, those games are usually very compelling games at the end of the season, the teams that are trying to stay up. You get very exciting football out of that. There was none of that this year in the Premier League.
No.
None. So Spurs have to do something. They have to say, thank you. Here's your replica of the trophy. Take that with you, put it in your house. You should be very proud of yourself. And we are very, very thankful that you came in and got us a trophy. But this isn't going to work. This isn't going to work. Lightning, you can catch lightning in a bottle every now and then. And I feel like that's what Spurs did because,
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head. It's a playoff.
yeah, yeah,
Ange Ball potentially can win playoffs.
right.
It can't win you leagues.
Yes, yes. And he did almost a Jose Mourinho in the final. You play a final to win.
Yes. Well, that's where I was going with too. It's
Mm-hmm.
like when Mr. Go guns a blazing in the 40th minute is just like I'm not going to press
Mm-hmm.
because the
Because I know you can't,
I
you're not good
know
enough
the
to score.
opposition isn't going to score.
Right.
That's that's saying something.
Yeah.
And we were talking a little bit about the watered down nature of the Europa League. It's funny. So like when the new format came out, and maybe because I was sick of goddamn Sevilla, I was like, oh, so there's going to be no parachute out of the Champions League. Cool.
Yes.
Now,
But
having watched this played out, I don't like this.
I don't either. That's
I
funny.
don't like
I
this.
don't either.
I
I
don't
don't
like
either.
this.
Mm-mm. No, and you know, as
Because this
Spurs
is where
fans,
your
go ahead.
fears about the Conference League actually are manifested.
Mm-hmm.
Because the fifth or sixth best team in a top five league is head and shoulders ahead of their equivalents or even the teams that finished second or something. And like,
Right.
what was the team that Spurs beat in the semifinals? Bodie Glint?
Yes.
Like, as messed up as Spurs are, you're playing a team from northern Norway, not even
Northern
from
Norway.
Oslo,
Yeah.
from
Northern
northern
Norway.
Norway,
Exactly.
that I have no idea what their budget is. I
Right.
don't recognize any of their players,
Right.
and they play on this weird frozen AstroTurf.
Yeah, I was gonna say they can't even play on grass because it's just
Yeah,
impossible.
so like that's actually a problem, and that's something that UEFA has to like.
Yes.
They have
Yeah.
to like refinagle this because as I guess flawed as the old system was, because some really good teams all of a sudden went down and got like second life.
Hmm.
The gap between those bigger, the more established and the big
Hmm.
money leagues and the rest is significant.
It's significant. But you also often saw that the teams that dropped down from Champions League, they weren't guaranteed. A fair share of them lost in those playoff games against a third place team or a second place team
Yeah,
in a division. They lost a lot, but they weren't losing to a team from Northern Norway. They weren't losing to a team from Finland. They were losing to Sevilla or they were losing to a Frankfurt, even though Frankfurt did, I believe they semifinal in this one or they quarterfinal. Or you're losing to you're gonna lose to Atalanta.
yeah.
So these are clubs that have budgets
Or
that
if
can
we
compete.
take it back 10, 15 years, you had those second, third place teams, let's say in Russia, that couldn't hack it
Yeah,
Champions League,
yeah, you lose it
but
to a
were
Dynamo
legit like these would be semifinalists,
right,
finalists in the Europa
right.
League.
You're losing to a team from Czech Republic that's got
Yeah.
ballers on there. Got ballers on those teams. So yeah, it's yes, it's when you have a bloated Champions League, you're gonna have a weaker Europa League, and you're going to have teams that can just sort of bounce through, and hopefully you get some good luck at some good and some easier competition where you could easily final. Then it's like we just got to win one game. And the fact that Spurs were so bad in the league, they could focus on this competition. Look who we're playing against. We might play Manchester United. Woo. Let's go ahead and go for it. And they happen to win. And good for Spurs. Good for Spurs. As you place in the competition, that's what it is. But yeah, this is something UEFA is going to have to address because what you don't want to happen is you don't want these competitions that are money makers for you in areas where you may not pull in so much to be even more watered down, excuse me, which may in the long run backfire in some way. And I'm fully speculating. I am, and but I will say Arsenal fan through and through. I am not diminishing Spurs' accomplishments, but I will say that the league in itself is not the same thing. I will also say if that was Arsenal versus Manchester United, recent history shows Arsenal would have lost that freaking game. But that's another thing. That's just I'm still so angry about all this. I hate sports. Why do I watch these damn things?
I can't say anything about PTSD at this point because I'm thinking about that too, and I'm like, you
Oh,
haven't won anything since 2000, since the COVID summer.
that's it. That's it. So, but let's go ahead and wrap up with Champions League
Yeah,
final.
we have the
Um,
real end of the season.
yes. So we have,
And Madrid isn't involved.
in fact, Spain isn't involved, which is odd. The fact that the Europa League final and the Champions League final did not have a Spanish team involved is somewhat surprising. There was a Spanish team in the Conference League final, but we're looking at PSG, who is finaling for the second time, and we have Inter, who is a. Hold on a second. I got to pause real quick. Sorry about that pause. I just wanted to say that Inter is also a team that has had much success in this competition. They were the first Italian team to win the treble, and they are a team that I imagine will be pretty hungry. The fact that they didn't win the Italian league at the last day, and a team that I have said that I will never pick until they prove me wrong, and that's PSG. So, Professor Matt, what is your take on this particular final?
So part of me, we've been through this before. I really wish it was Inter Barca because that that was one of the best semifinal ties I've perhaps ever seen. And I think I don't think this is going to be a lopsided match. I actually think this is going to be a very competitive match. But the the way that those two teams, in a weird way, canceled each other out. Uh, Barca's openness almost played into Inter's hands, and vice versa. I it's not just that Inter has a history in this tournament, and in I think I think this team, because weirdly enough, and they should be very happy about this. Going back to Lukaku, Lukaku was City's defensive MVP 2 years ago, because they should have won that match. Inter really should have won that match. I think they feel they have unfinished business. Uh, and PSG, and I look, I'm with you until you prove me wrong. I don't necessarily think this is the year that they prove us wrong. But I'll say this: I love what Luis Enrique has done with this group, and I like I like this model of PSG more than I've liked any other model, because it's like, okay, rather than let's buy nice shiny things and hope it works, let's actually buy and invest in a project, build it, and then, hopefully it will work, and it will work for 4, 5, 6 years.
Hmm. Yeah, and I think it will. Um, this
I do
PSG
too.
this PSG squad has deep talent, but I don't see shiny objects that they want to show off.
No,
And
the
go ahead.
closest thing is, weirdly enough, the guy I've been trumping on this podcast for years, and he's a Georgian guy.
Hmm.
Like, he
Hmm.
doesn't really sell jerseys yet.
Hmm. Yeah.
Uh Yet.
Hmm.
Like, I guess Dembele, but like, let's be real, he's a reclamation
I was
project.
about to say Dembele's there because he got somewhat forced out of where he was because he was just kind of a a little bit of a, I don't want to say anything too negative about the guy, but he was not doing well. He
And
wasn't.
and
And
the word on the street is
he was kind
that,
of a malcontent.
yeah, a little bit of
A little
malcontent.
bit. Yeah.
Word on the street was like video games and beer were more important than
Right. Right.
football.
Yeah.
And it's kind of
He had the
crazy
Jaden
for
Sancho reputation.
a guy as fast and as skilled with the ball as he is. Who knew moving him to central striker would like revitalize his career? Because
Hmm.
I mean, there was a time, I correct me if I'm wrong, Arsenal were in on him. Like,
Yeah. Well, of course, he's French and he plays
yeah,
attack. So
exactly.
Arsenal
Like,
that seems to be their
when he was
they
at
love those
Dortmund,
guys.
I was like, this is a potential future Ballon d'Or winner.
Hmm.
And then he made this big move to Spain, and he just everything seemed to fall apart. But like,
Right.
he's he's been completely revitalized, and
Mm.
I'm pretty sure the choir here, having gotten knocked out by PSG, their midfield, or at least their starting three, is really goddamn good.
Really,
They are
really good.
physical, they are technical.
Yes, and they control a game that you don't often see. The way that they just sort of swallow the other team's midfield, the way they just keep them off the ball, the way they move the ball with purpose and in the attack, but not reckless like one would suspect, is really been eye-opening. And I can honestly say that this PSG team versus teams in previous years who were able to get somewhere in Champions League, where I've been like, they no, they're too busy beating up on these kids in France. Is I'm looking at this team now, going, all right, this is a team that won the league 3 months ago. I mean, they won by 19 points, so it's like they won this league a long time ago, and they can really tactically plan in a way that no other team really can. So I was disappointed, but I can't say I was surprised by the way Arsenal was dismantled by them. But I will say this: they're going against Inter team, who I thought that was a this. It's one of those ones where you hate VAR. You just hate it. And look, Mkhitaryan had ups and downs at Arsenal, but I've always thought he was good, and he won that game for them, and they made his shoelace offsides and called that back, which was just a terrible, terrible situation. But I really feel like Inter won both of those games 4-3,
Yeah,
both of
they
them.
really did. And the character, because I don't know about you, I assumed, uh-oh,
I thought they'd be
they're done.
rattled.
I thought
I
they were
thought they were
done.
done after
And
that
then
draw.
when
I was
they
like, that's it, they're
scored
done.
that goal in extra time, I was like, it's raining. There's nothing worse than playing on a wet pitch, having several tens of thousands of angry Italians yelling at you. And yeah, this is
Mm-hmm.
so I, I've said this on this podcast probably since last August. I said whenever we were like, who are the favorites? And it was the usual suspects.
Mm-hmm.
I always kept saying, hey, I think there's something about this Inter team.
Yeah, you did. I remember that.
And it's, we were talking about managers that are tactically inflexible. Inzaghi may be the most tactically flexible manager
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
in Europe. And
Mm-hmm.
while maybe this is why they did not win the Scudetto, because that may not be the best way to approach a league.
Mm-hmm.
You're approaching knockout football.
Especially
Tackle.
especially a team that's can be I hate the word robotic, but the the way the Italian leagues play, I mean they're so defensive minded, and you have to have your structure, you have to have your chess pieces aligned properly. So being overly flexible can play into the course of the plans of when you're
Yep,
playing against in a league that's structured that way. So I can see how that could be detrimental in the Italian in Serie A, but on the flip side, in a playoff, in a tournament,
exactly.
bam.
That's exactly what you and Inter is the most. They're simultaneously the most Italian team, in so much that they have good. Jan Sommer, man of the match, second
Mm-hmm.
leg against
Mm-hmm.
Barcelona. They have good goalkeeping. Defensively, they're sound. Bastoni is actually just scratching his potential. He was
Right.
25 at this point. Like
Mm-hmm.
he for a long time, it was like Italian center backs can't get out of Italy because if you go out of Italy, you'll be forced to like move, and
Mm-hmm.
you can't do that. He
Right.
can do that. Uh they can do the whole like classic Italian dark arts defend to the death, but they have guys that can hurt you in the
Yeah.
final third.
Mm-hmm.
And look at that midfield. It's Bastoni, Mkhitaryan, who I think is still like his time in England is just sad.
It is sad.
It's
It is sad.
injuries and like bad fits
Yeah,
because
but if as an injury prone player, going to Arsenal is the worst thing you can do, especially at that time. But
yeah,
sometimes you just get a bad run and as a professional, and the way he's been able to bounce back from it has been has been beyond admirable because he's not a young guy. So I didn't mean to stop your train of thought, but I'm all I'm saying is I'm completely in support of what you're saying because I completely agree.
and up front, okay, they don't have Lukaku, which I think is a good thing, not a bad thing in this
Yeah.
context. Uh Lautaro Martinez has his warts. Not particularly my favorite striker, but when he's needed to score goals, he scores clutch goals.
Mm-hmm.
Go ask Argentina
Mm-hmm.
about
Mm-hmm.
Lautaro Martinez. Like,
Yeah.
they have guys that can hurt you. And while I'm not shocked that this PSG team is here, I think it's like almost 1 year too early. And there's
Mm-hmm.
one thing that I noticed when we played them and when you guys played them, and we really, neither of our teams took advantage of it. And it's easier said than done because of that midfield.
Mm-hmm.
Their attacks, good, very
Mm-hmm.
good. Their
Mm-hmm.
midfield is, like I said, it's technical, but it's also physical. they do have defensive. They are a bit defensively fragile.
Yes.
Marquinhos is not who he used to be. He's
Yes.
so mad tiny. And
Yeah.
I come from a team where our center backs have to be 6'3", 6'4".
Right. Right.
But like he's
And had either of our teams had a legit center forward, we can honestly say that it might have been a different story.
exactly. So like
Mhm.
he's tiny. And I still can't figure out who Ashraf Hakimi really is. Because no, when he's those of you who follow American football will understand this. He is the footballing equivalent of Packers quarterback Jordan Love. When he is good, he looks like the best in his position in the world. When he's bad, you question how the hell he got
Right.
like the
How
swing.
does he have a contract, you know?
Yeah, like I still don't know who the hell he really is. So I if I had to put a prediction on it, I say Inter in a close one, 2-1. I think PSG will score, but I think it might be 2-0 before they do.
Yeah, I was gonna
And
say,
Inter will like the first goal in this match is going to be key because if Inter does score first, I think that they can slow it down, they can control it, they can
right.
Italy it.
Yeah. If Inter score at like the 35-minute mark to go up 1-0, I see this as 2-0 Inter. And if it is 2-1, it's 2-1 with PSG scoring in the 88th minute or something
Wait,
like that.
yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm predicting. Um, I just feel like I think PSG's lack of playing against competent competition week in and week out is going to eventually catch up with them because it always does. And yes, you I think stylistically and matchup wise, based on the teams that Liverpool and Arsenal were able to put on the field, were the reasons why PSG were able to win both of those games. Look, the best I've ever seen them look was the first game against Arsenal. Because they could have won that game 3-4-0 easily. They could have won that game. Arsenal was lucky to get out of there 1-0. And so there's just like I don't know. I think they were just out coached. I don't see them getting out. I don't see Inter getting out coached. I don't see that.
I don't either. And in the case of the, you know, uh tie against Liverpool, it really was PSG's midfield. Like as good as Liverpool's midfield is,
Mm-hmm.
outside of Gravenberch, you don't have. I mean, McAllister thinks he's physical, but he's about
Mm-hmm.
my size.
Right.
Like it doesn't quite work that way. We got
Right.
out muscled.
Yeah.
Inter is the first time. So we got out muscled. You got out finessed.
Yeah.
Inter's the first team that they've come up against in the knockout stages that can match them physically and in terms of the finesse.
Yeah. Yeah. So both of us are picking Inter. Both of us are seeing 2-0 or 2-1 Inter, with Inter going up 2-0 at some point during the game. And I see Inter winning this competition again. But it's good. But I think it's going to be a fun game to watch. I
Yeah,
do.
I
I
think
think it's going to be a good game.
it's gonna be entertaining.
Yeah, it's going to be
And
entertaining.
I we're both picking Inter. Would I be shocked if the next time we sit down and we're like, well, we were wrong about PSG? I wouldn't be totally shocked
I
because
wouldn't either.
I genuinely believe that they are going to win this trophy sometime in the next 2 or 3. If they can keep this
Yeah.
nucleus together, like it's talented and it's young.
Hmm.
Like that,
It is young.
it
It
is
is young.
very young.
Yeah. And let's not forget, though, as far as PSG is concerned, that they do have Gianluigi Donnarumma. And eventually, because I don't think people really realize this about Donnarumma. Donnarumma's 26.
Yeah, he's still crazy,
That's it. And then for a goalie,
stupid
he's
young.
a baby for a goalie. And the fact that he has as many games as he does under his belt at 26, you know, you know, and he's like 6'6".
It's possible because I brought up their defensive frailties,
Yeah.
but I watched my team lose to Real Madrid 3 years ago
Hmm.
because a Belgian guy had the freaking match of his life.
Right.
Like,
Right.
let's be real. So,
And
like, it's
it's
possible that
possible. It's possible.
Donnarumma can do that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, look, Donnarumma is the next Thibaut Courtois. I mean, he really is. If he's
They're
not already there.
stylistically they're very similar because they're not. Neither of them are really modern goalkeepers,
No.
but they're just outstanding shot
They're
stoppers.
yes, exactly. It is just so hard to put the ball by them. Are they
Mhm.
going to be, sweeping from the back and getting your counter going? No, but they don't have to. They don't have to go far outside of their line, their box. They don't have to. And I almost think that's even scarier because those guys don't often get out of position. So,
No, and they can compensate again. PSG defensive
mhm,
frailty
right.
that can if you're gonna go one route football that negates that at least for some time. Yeah,
Yeah. Well, I think we should go ahead and wrap this up.
yeah.
This
We
has been
as always we think this is gonna be like an hour, and then it's like
and it just goes and goes and goes and
ramble.
goes and goes. Yeah. But when we're doing this is as we're doing it, we're gonna have a lot to talk about. So but we'll try to reconvene in a couple of weeks after this game is over and after things sort of settle down, and then we might want to discuss this upcoming Club World Cup that they're having, and if this is viable television or not, or is something we should pay attention to or not. And it's always fun
Or
to
if it should be in the summer or not.
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. And is it just too many games? So but let's go ahead and wrap this
I
up.
think you've
Go ahead.
given a preview of the next episode. There are too
Yeah, yeah. Well, but also we're gonna have some discussions about going lots of different directions with not only this show but getting more satellites on there because we have so many people who want to get some things going and we're just waiting for the right time to get going. But I'm Stead, and this is a Too Many Guys Soccer Show. Professor Matt, thanks again for joining me, and it's always great to talk to you. You give some of the best insights and analysis that I've ever heard. So really appreciate you coming on. Any parting shots?
No, I think
Yeah.
that's about it.
Yeah, that's about it. Yeah. Don't think we have much left to say.
Ah,
All right. So, Professor Matt Umstead, and this has been Too
words
Many.
of Rasheed Wallace, good night and God bless.
Yeah. And we'll leave on that note. Have a great week, everybody. And we did all right this week. Hopefully, we'll do better next time.